Welcome back to lesson 2 here. This lesson will examine C Sharp's primitive data types, and we are going to examine them in depth, so there will be multiple videos for this lesson. And each video will have a letter after the lesson number. For example, lesson 2A, lesson 2B, C, D, and so on. Okay, some of the primitive data types are the common data types, if you want to say, to C Sharp. And the first one we are going to work with is the Boolean. Now the Boolean is pretty simple. Either has a value of true or it has a value of false. And to see this in action, let's go ahead and create a Boolean variable. And we are going to create a Boolean variable and initialize its value to false. Now, as you can see in my naming convention here, I write bool and then my Boolean. Now, normally, I always do this with my naming conventions for whatever data type they are. For like integer, I'll put int. For short, I'll put sht, sorry. And for long, lng. Now, I come from Visual Basic, so this is why I use that naming convention. And I'm sure those of you who also worked with Visual Basic, you probably have a naming convention that's similar. So, okay, so now I say that my Boolean is false. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and print some information about this. So I'll say console that right line, and I'll say okay, and after I write this, I'm going to stop and explain myself. Okay, now what does this line that I just wrote do? Okay, well, the first line is pretty simple. We're just printing this out to the console. Okay. Now, the second line here, I have a string type. Okay. But then I have a plus or the addition operator here. Now, this is not adding these. These are concatenating these. So basically, I'm having a string, and then I'm having the value together. Okay, and as you can see here, there's a space between here and here, and that is just to give, and I'll show you why. I'll just show you here. And as you can see, the output here, let's just give a little bit of space. Okay, and as you can see, it's system.boolean. Okay. Now, when I type in my variable and then I type the dot, I get some options, and of course I use the getType method here to get the type of the variable, which comes out as Boolean. So, and of course you do have to have the empty parentheses there as well. But that is what this line is saying and doing. Let's also get the range here. Range. Let's say I'm going to say bool dot false string and I'm going to put and I'm concatenating all of these together, so that is why I'm using the addition operator here and not the true string. Okay. And let's go ahead and just print the value of our variable, which is obviously false. Okay? So let me go ahead and boom. And then I'm going to insert a blank line. And that's how you insert a blank line in C#. Okay, so we could say the range is false and true, of course, and the value, of course, is false as well. So the Boolean, you'll find out that the Boolean comes really handy with the if statement when making decisions, and that won't be covered to later chapters. But for now, just think of Boolean either has a value of false or true. Okay? And let's move on to some whole numbers here. Let's start with the byte. The byte is a whole number who only has a range of 0 to 255. It's an unsigned integer. Unsigned means it only has a positive value. Signed means it also has a negative and a positive value. So let's go ahead and create a byte data type here, and we'll say byte. My byte equals 125. Print information on byte. My byte. Let's say console that right line. And also, I'm going to show you how to format strings later on as well, because we'll be getting into some bigger numbers and it can be hard to read without like commas and things of that nature. So we'll say byte, my byte, okay, and we can say console dot right line type. Again, we're going to use the addition operator to concat. Byte, my byte, dot. Oh, and let me just show you what comes up here. When I punch in that dot, the IntelliSense comes up, and we have 6 methods that we can choose from, and of course we're going to use the get type. Okay. So console that right line, and we'll say the range up byte dot min value plus 2 byte dot max value. Okay. Then we're going to print the value, the current value. Now remember that value, since it is a variable, not a constant, it can change. What is it? Byte. We'll get into constants later on here. Okay, so right here is, let's go ahead and let's run it. And of course, you can see the type is byte, the range is 0 to 255, and the value is 125. Okay, so let's do another one here, and let's do a short. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to save the short and the integer for the next video. I want to go into into what a constant and a variable is. Now, so far we've been using variables. Variables can change. I mean, for example, we can say byte, my byte, and increment that value by 5, which is now 130. Okay, but if we start declaring a constant, I will say byte. Let's say my constant equals 5. Okay, now basically when you declare a constant, you have to initialize its value. For example, a compiler error will happen if we don't. And it says a const field requires a value to be provided. So we must initialize that. Now basically you don't want to have any loose numbers in your programs. For example, you don't want the 5 being seen in your code, coming across it that way. A good practice is to put that into a constant or a read-only property, and that's for later chapters. I believe that's for lesson 15. But for an example, to see how this works, we could say console.write line byte, my byte, plus my const. And as you can see, it prints 130. Okay? So basically, but now when we try to change the value of the constant, well, it must be a variable. Let me see if I can. The left-hand side of an assignment must be a variable property or an indexer. Okay, so you can't change the value of a constant once it has been initialized. I'm sorry, I mean, we can change the initialization right here to 10 if we want, but once that is set, we cannot change it anywhere else in the code. Okay, so that's going to conclude this video. Again, the next couple of videos we're going to go over the short, the integer, the long, the floating, the float, the decimal, the char, string, data types as well.